Good morning, everybody. Oh, remember to vote, November. Thank you for that public service announcement. So I'm going to ring the bell. We're going to start our service. Welcome. My name is Sally Wantz, and it's my pleasure to be your service leader today. I'm also joined today by Ray Plummery over here on our computer, and he'll be queuing up our music. I've got Jim on the camera, and Catherine Hemmons will help us with joys and concerns and some other announcements. So thank you very, very much. So at this time, I'm going to ask Ray to cue up our Spirit of Life. This is a recording by Jeff Lovejoy, and we hope you enjoy it. I'm going to ask Catherine. She's going to come on up, and we're going to sing with Jeff. Thank you, Ray. That's our opening song every week. It just warms the cockles in my heart. So a few announcements. Today at 5 p.m. we will have another Zoom happy hour, and we intend to host these, I think, every other Sunday. We're going to do a picnic one Sunday and a Zoom at 5 o'clock the other Sunday, so we don't do too much at once. So your invitation is in the e-blast. So today, the 26th at 5 p.m., join us for a Zoom happy hour. And then speaking of picnics, our next one will be next Sunday, August 2nd at noon. Bring your own everything, including your chair, your food, your beverage, and maybe somebody has a boombox with some music, or maybe somebody wants to bring an instrument and play some music. We need to make this a party, okay? I've got a ukulele. You want me to bring it?
Yes.
No, I can't play it. I'll leave it at home. And next Sunday we have Reverend Barbara Wells Tenhove joining us for another special message on perseverance. Thereafter we have our own Karen Hernandez, Patty Godwin, Lori Severance, and then Dean Schrock and Ruth Miller will also be providing a Sunday message coming up, so stay tuned for them. Finally, I hope you read the letter from our President Ray Plummery in the e-blast this morning regarding our ministerial search. We're moving ahead with it. It's looking good, but it's in order to give you clear transparency about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So if you have any questions, please send us an email to florence.unitarian@gmail.com. So with no more announcements, I invite Catherine to come forward. We're going to light our chalice as I share these words from Gregory Pelly, titled Thirsty. And so we gather from the ebb and flow of our lives, thirsty for connection to ourselves, thirsty for connection to others, thirsty for connection to the larger life. As we light this chalice, may all who gather here and where you are be filled with joy and hope, filled with compassion and love. Here, may we be filled so that we may pour ourselves out into the world. Blessed be. Catherine, I invite you to come forward as we do our joys and concerns.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is the part of our service for joys and concerns. We do this to strengthen our connection with each other. We may not be able to be in this room together, but we are in each other's hearts and minds, and we can communicate. If you have an email that you would like me to pass on, a joy or concern, please email Foof, and it will be passed on to me to say at the Sunday service. We do have a couple of joy. Actually, we have all joys, I think, this week. The first one, Sally, you will drop a shell in for yourself.
I have a joy, and my joy is this. We have a dedicated group of people who head up what we call our pastoral care committee. And I just want you to know they are there for us. You need them. You need somebody to talk to. If something's on your mind and you want to bounce an idea off, whatever is going on, whether it's a joy, a concern, a sorrow, whatever, call Catherine. She's going to give you her phone number, or you can write to us at florence.unitarian@gmail.com. So it's really important, this pastoral care committee, especially at times like this. So I'm very joyful that they are available, ready, willing, and able to bear witness to what you want to share. Catherine.
So as Sally said, I will give you my phone number because there seems to be some confusion of the pastoral care number that was given out. So my number is 831-241-1317, and I will pass on whatever needs to be if the pastoral care committee can step up for you in any way. So thank you. I have a couple of other things here. First, I want to share another joy that was sent to me through an email by our beloved Jay Gettler, who does so many things for us. And these are his words. It's been a long time since I offered up a joy or a concern, but I'd like to offer up a bit of joy for this service. I would like to share with you some observations which have brought me a feeling of gratitude. Even with the continuous streams of chaos on our Facebook and news feeds, there are plentiful examples of people coming together to voice their beliefs that kindness and inclusion are fundamental to a sustainable path forward. In a time where there are many with much in fear, In a time, there are many with much in fear of those with less. I receive a heartfelt inquiry of my well-being and a gift of shared laughter at the state of things from those without shelter or security. From one who has very little, I am shown what generosity should look like. Sure, there's a lot to be worried and scared about in these times. Yet, there is also so much to be grateful for. Be aware of those facets in your life that give you a reason to hope, a reason to be grateful. Jay Gettler. Thank you, Jay. That was beautiful and very inspirational, and Sally is dropping a shell into there.
Big shell.
Big shell.
Big shell.
For the big heart that he has.
Big heart.
I'd like to mention a workshop coming up. Finding yourself single. We're going to put a shell in there for that, actually. You know, with all the things going on in the world, personal things still happen. People die. People, they pass on. People leave you sometimes and go somewhere else just for their own reasons. And finding yourself single, it is on August 7th from 9:30 to 12:30. Like suddenly your other half isn't there. The world isn't the same. It hurts. And there is so much to remember and things to do. And boy, you don't feel like doing them. Or you don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So this workshop will encompass things like beginnings of support systems, clearer understanding of what you're going through and why, and normalizing it to the extent that it is a universal feeling, this grief and loss and confusion and that spaced out feeling. And where do we turn? Well, we turn to each other is where we turn. There'll be resources for dealing with these issues, and and just coming together. And actually, we're going to be coming together in FOOF, in the building. So, here's the one thing. We are limited to 7 participants. We already have 3. And so if you look on your blast, it's in the blast, and reply to that if you would like to attend, again, on August 7th, 9:30 to 12:30, in the FOOF building. We're going to do all the cleaning we need to do before and after, and we'll socially distance and make it as safe and comfortable as possible to deal with these deeply personal issues. Thank you. I have one more little thing. I like these quotes from Anne. Thank you, Anne Lathrop. And this, I like this one for today. Our anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows, but only empties today of its strengths. Thank you.
I might have to get a copy of that. Thank you. So I selected a responsive reading this morning, and I invite Catherine and Ray and Jim, if you can gather around the camera there, we'll enter into a responsive reading. This comes from Rainer Marie Rilke. It's letter number 4 from Letters to a Young Poet, and it's translated by Stephen Mitchell. So if you've got your role, I've got my role. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves.
As if they are locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language.
Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them.
And the point is to live everything.
Live the questions now.
Perhaps then, someday far in the future,
you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer.
I love that.
I know. So at this time, I invite Ray to cue up our music. We've got a musical interlude from Jeff Lovejoy, and it's called Water Over Stones. So I'm going to lower the lights. I'm going to ask Jim to focus in on our wonderful painting, our geese. As you listen to this, relax, enjoy, and we'll be right back. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you our guest at the pulpit this day, Kari Gottfried. She's no stranger to us, as this is her fifth, maybe her sixth message to our fellowship over the last couple of years. Today, Kari continues with part 2 of her 3-part series on the 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism. Today, Kari explores source number 1 and 5, drawing on her own direct experiences of mystery and wonder, as well as our humanist and scientific teachings and warnings about idolatry. Her message will bring us deeper into our faith and move us to a renewal of the spirit. Today's title is Renewal and Reason. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be in community with you again, even if just virtually. This is the second in a 3-part series on the 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism. Each month I focus on 2 of the sources, what they are, what they mean to me, and how they interact with each other, to live as part of our shared faith journey. The sermons work well on their own, but I encourage you to watch all 3 to gain a greater understanding of the sources that influence all that we do. Today's sermon will focus on our 1st and 5th sources, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. And humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. I remember the first time I truly felt like I was on the edge of the world. It was my senior year of high school, and my fellowship's youth group was spending the weekend at the coast, just a little ways up from Florence, on our annual fall retreat. After a day filled with team-building activities, deep listening, and more than a few s'mores, a group of us decided we wanted to go down to the beach. It was 10, maybe 11 p.m., and the rest of the campsites were silent and empty. We took the winding trail through the beach grass, the boardwalk slowly disintegrating into sand beneath our bare feet, laughing and talking loudly, knowing that there was no one around to make us be quiet. But suddenly, without any prompting from our advisor or any of us, we fell silent. We had arrived at the top of the trail on a sand dune that gave way to the shoreline. The moon was full, maybe not all the way, but enough that we could see its reflection on the gentle waves and make out each other's shadowy figures in the dark. That moment of silence was broken as a few of my friends leapt off the path and into the sand dune, screaming wildly as their feet carried them down to the water. I don't know how much time we spent on that beach. Probably not long at all, because as you all know, the coast in the fall isn't always the warmest place to be, especially without any sunshine. We ran around, drew messages we couldn't see in the sand, darted toward the water before quickly evading the tide and returning to the dry sand. I did my fair share of running and screaming too. It's a great outlet for most any emotion. But after a little bit, I wandered off, a little further from the group, to stare out at the ocean. I couldn't see any signs of human life besides the few humans I was with and the far-away glow of a lighthouse. But if I focused on the waves, looking as far out as I could, I didn't see anything except the edge of the world. It felt mystical, magical, impossible to be having this experience, and to be truthful, at first it was pretty scary. There was something about the curve of the horizon, the moon so impossibly large but so far away, the darkness, the lack of anything human, that made me feel so so small. But I knew that I was small. I knew that the moon, a quarter of the size of our entire Earth, had the force to pull on the ocean's tides. I knew that Earth's gravity was what was keeping me on the edge of the world, keeping me from floating out into the great, great universe. Knowing that truth, even if so much else was unknown, was enough to bring me peace. Being guided by reason and the results of science, as our sources call us to do, only made that experience so much more powerful, because I had the how, even if I didn't have the why. It doesn't surprise me that the first time I felt this feeling, this direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder, was when I was with other Unitarian Universalists. There's something about our communities that opens me up to experiences like these. And I guess that makes sense. After all, our third principle calls us to encourage each other to spiritual growth. And it was thanks to simple opportunities of joy like these that have always been what sparks my sense of the divine. Our first source encourages an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. When reflecting on this openness, it's hard to know where to begin, but I suppose I'd begin at the creation of all life. This source recognizes that creation is something that is affirmed in all cultures. Almost every known religious tradition has its own creation myth, and many have several different creation stories due to the nature of oral tradition. Although each story is different and many have several different features and characters, they've been established as a way to discover meaning from the world. Of course, there is also the story we recognize as the Big Bang, which has been affirmed by science. And there is still so much to uncover. Just like the ocean and its tides, we may have a how, but the why is up to us. This is a part of our theology to take comfort in the discomfort of not knowing everything. Our truth continues to be revealed. Our revelation is not sealed. To some, that might be scary. But I encourage us to lean into that discomfort, the knowledge that we do not and will not ever know the true depths of the universe. We may never know the why. But when I stared out at that ocean, that miraculous night, it didn't matter that I had yet to uncover the mysteries of the universe. What mattered is that I was experiencing that mystery directly. What a gift. You see, our source doesn't just encourage these experiences of wonder and the openness of life. It acknowledges that they should move us to a renewal of the spirit. Take time in your life to notice the mystery and wonder around you, wherever it is, and let it renew your spirit. Now, the second source we're focusing on today isn't just about science. It comes from our humanist roots. And as the UU Humanist Association says, we are religious in that we share with most Unitarian Universalists the natural human desires for a beloved and accepting community, a purpose greater than ourselves, rituals and practices that resonate with our common humanity and shared mortality, and opportunities to work with other tough-minded, warm-hearted people to do good in the world and to help one another attain the greatest possible fulfillment in life. But humanism hasn't always been one of the sources we draw from in our faith. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Unitarians rejected humanism, believing that atheistic humanism would lead to the death of Unitarianism. As the years went by, humanism began to gain more popularity in the Midwest and Western United States, although it was still heavily rejected in the East. And this is where the first UU congregation of Ann Arbor, where I am serving this summer as student intern, comes in. In the summer of 1920, the Unitarian magazine The Christian Register, which is one of the predecessors to our current UU World, ran an article on humanism written by the minister of the Ann Arbor congregation. 12 years later, a congregant of Ann Arbor and professor at the University of Michigan, Roy Wood Sellers, drafted the first Humanist Manifesto. The manifesto was the first time the belief was clearly stated that it was possible to live an ethical life without God. Now, almost 90 years later, humanism is widely accepted in our congregations and affirmed in the sources of our living tradition. And this source not only calls on that humanist heritage, but warns us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. When I first started looking critically at this source, I was really confused by that phrase, idolatries of the mind and spirit. In the Abrahamic traditions we are descended from, idolatry is a deep sin against God, a rejection of that Abrahamic God as the one true power of the universe. Of course, although that idea of idolatry is a part of our faith's history, it doesn't make much sense to use that definition now. We don't require belief in one God over another, or, for that matter, any belief in God at all. The other sources of our living tradition support what Christianity, Judaism, and Islam would call idol worshipping. And as our faith grows, expands, and changes, our definitions must too grow, expand, change. For me, idolatry of mind and spirit isn't about worshiping something else instead of God. It's about worshiping ideals over community. It's about assuming that the work can be done if we go it alone. In an excerpt in UU World from Nancy MacDonald Ladd's book, After the Good News, Progressive Faith Beyond Optimism, Nancy writes, "There is an idolatry of expectation that drives us, in the liberal churches, to imagine that the dismantling of oppression was ever achievable through the limited mechanism of our own personal efforts." And as Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, who was chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the 1960s, said, "The struggle has not stopped. It didn't begin in the 50s and end in the 70s. The struggle is continuous." They are saying that we, as Unitarian Universalists, as people of faith, tend to get a little caught up in ourselves. After all, we are a progressive faith, both religiously and socially. We side with love and justice, and we try to do the right thing as often as we can. But it is when we start patting ourselves on the back, thinking about how great our faith is, that we are accepting and inclusive and involved in all the right things, that we fall into this idolatry of expectation. We cannot and should not be lulled into the complacency that we are ever doing enough alone or that the struggle is over. That's what this source is really warning us against. And this is why I love this goal I've been setting for myself, to preach on our 6 sources in 3 sermons. We are discovering together how much these sources can really teach us. And just like how we cannot dismantle oppression alone, we cannot rely on any one of these sources individually. They are strongest when combined and set against each other. Because when I think about idolatry, when I start to realize that there will never be anything that I can do alone that will be enough to reach the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, it gets a little dark. I start to feel a little hopeless. It's so easy to get caught up in the work. And for me, whenever I need to break that, I know where to turn. To the transcendent mystery and wonder of our world, affirmed in all cultures. That moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. We must be open to the transcendent mystery and wonder all around us. We must allow it to renew our spirits. And we must warn ourselves against the idolatry of expectation that we are in this struggle alone.
Thank you, Kari. It's such a joy to experience your message. It fills me up with gladness that you are a part of our fellowship, truly. Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace, justice, love, and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many, many, many small congregations like ours. No matter its size, every congregation depends on its members and extraordinary friends. Each one of you, by your commitment of time and energy and resources, helps make that grand vision real. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists, building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. At this time, I ask you, you who are listening to this from the comfort of your own special place of worship, to consider your contribution to FOOF and send it to P.O. Box 2502, Florence 97439. Or it's pretty darn easy if you want to click on the donate button from our website. It'll take place automatically. And our website is florenceuuf.com. As always, your spiritual practice of giving to FOOF, as well as our community partner, KXCR, will be so appreciated. I invite Catherine to come forward as we extinguish the flame of our chalice. I would like to share the following from Amy Zucker Morgenstern, titled, It Becomes More. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less. It becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives, sharing it with the world. Blessed be. So these closing words come from Barbara Cheatham. And now we take our leave. Before we gather here again, may each of us bring happiness into another's life. May we each be surprised by the gifts that surround us. May we each be enlivened by constant curiosity. And may we remain together in spirit until the hour we meet again, virtually or in person. We're going to conclude with our peace song. This also was recorded by Jeff Lovejoy, and Catherine's going to come up. We're not going to hold hands, but we're going to be virtually together as we sing our peace song and close out our service for this particular week. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for joining us for this special service. Ray, bring it on.
Let
Thank you, Jim.